All right. Testing for dingle clacks. Oh, no, I think we're good to go. Well, what's up, everybody? I don't do this on TBN. Welcome to or welcome back to TBN. Yeah, we're back. We're here. It's a thing again. Damn it. Yeah, I know. We're here. I'm as surprised as you are. Let me get the lower third up here. We are going to have a special guest today. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to TBN. This is the stream where we focus down on news, advocacy, science, policy, regulations, legislations, nicotine, smoking. How many more fingers do you have?
2.
Sometimes unpopular opinions and the such as. Right, that happens. Anyway, I'm your host. It's Nick. It's my co-host. It's Danielle Jones, president of CASA. What's up, Danielle Jones?
Oh, chilling.
Look at us being back.
I know, right? I'm like, I'm a little rusty. I gotta brush the dust off.
Felt
what
super
is this?
rusty.
Hello?
Yeah.
What's happening?
What am I doing? Why is this? What is this so close to me for? What is this?
What am I? Did I have to put makeup on? What's happening?
Yeah, feels good. Glad to have you back. Glad to be back. So much happened while we were gone.
Oh my God.
Too much happened while we were gone.
A lot of things happened.
A lot of big things happened while we were gone.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk about them, damn it. Danielle Jones, we're going to talk about all of them.
Yep.
I think Amanda Wheeler was just here.
Yeah, we're having some dangle clacks.
And then there were some dangle clacks, and then things happened, and I think she jumped out. She should come back.
Yeah.
Hopefully she comes back. She was the basis of our entire stream today.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be real weird if she can't come back.
It's going to be real weird if she can't come back. I mean, look, between the two of us, we can definitely rag on the FDA. And we can definitely we can talk about everything that happened with Juul, even the stuff that nobody's talking about,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, stuff like that.
Yep.
But Amanda Wheeler did have some, what she was calling spicy news.
I want to hear about spicy news.
I want to hear about spicy news too. I want to hear about spicy news. Well, here's what we can talk about while we wait for Amanda Wheeler. Let's talk about this, Danielle Jones.
Yeah.
This is a call to action. It's also a citizen's petition.
Yes, exactly.
Can you speak to this, Danielle Jones? I know you can.
I wish Amanda were here because AVM is the one that
was here. Really did it.
Right. But essentially, this is not the first time one of these has been done before. And this is not the same as like a change.org petition. This is actually an official government petition that the FDA looks at, what I mean? This is through regulatory channels. It's actually hosted on regulations.gov, which is the official government situation. CASA's cool system that we have allows us to make it easy for you to submit comments to this quickly and easily, but it actually does go through the government. FDA is required to look at these. I think they're required to say something, or it's way more official than any normal type petition. And so we are encouraged, and it's about essentially, I feel like I'm going to mess this up and I wish Amanda was here, but it's related to synthetic nicotine.
Right.
And I believe it is, petitioning the FDA to essentially delay or rather deter enforcement against synthetic nicotine products. As we all know, right, FDA a few months back suddenly decided that they would insert, or rather Congress decided that synthetic nicotine would be inserted into the Tobacco Control Act. It was previously sort of a loophole type situation, but now it's rolled in with everything else. And so FDA gave manufacturers, or Congress rather, gave manufacturers 30, 60 days to throw together a PMTA and submit, and it was absolutely ridiculous. And so in part, what this is sort of asking for kind of leniency and things on enforcement action related to this in order to keep these products available for the people that rely on them. So absolutely do it, please. If you haven't,
100%.
Please go do.
Ready for this? I'll put the link right in the chat.
Do it.
I know. I'm sure Addie Tooney's been putting the link in the chat as well. Whoops. Maybe I can't. Okay. Well, maybe I can't put the link in the chat exactly right now, but nope, I have no idea why I can't. That's ridiculous. Oh, let's go over to here. Oh, no, it's too long. Okay. The web address is just way too long to link this tweet, that is.
Oh,
to
the
link
tweet.
this
I see.
This one.
We could just go straight to the call to action.
This one should work fine. I'm going to put the link in the chat. I forget when I swipe over that everybody can see what I'm swiping to back and forth. I literally always forget about that. But yeah, do the call to action.
Yeah,
this
is
one,
asking
important.
FDA to use enforcement discretion
because it has
nicotine.
Enforcement discretion. Like that's something that they talk about.
Right.
They can choose who to. Oh, we've
Right.
got an updated Amanda Wheeler.
Was that your text message noise?
Look at fancy
There you
Amanda
are.
Wheeler.
Ooh, you're in a different location now.
My webcam, for some reason, started making evil noises and doing crazy things. So I just booted my husband out of his office, and I said, "Sorry, I've got to steal your office right now." No questions allowed.
I support it.
No questions asked. Yeah, look at Pro Sauce Amanda Wheeler. Well, welcome Amanda Wheeler.
Yay! And you're
to
just
the live
in time.
Stream.
We're talking about the Citizens Petition.
Citizens
We're just
Petition.
talking about why it's important for people to participate in this. CASA has a call to action that makes it super easy to do it. Is there anything you'd like to talk about in relation to the Citizens Petition?
Yeah. Is this different than like a change petition or a White House petition?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the official process in the Federal Register to petition the FDA. It is a part of the official federal record. They do collect comments on it. It's on the same platform, regulations.gov, where they do propose rulemaking and take comments on that sort of thing. So it's not like an informal petition or a change.org petition. It's the official pathway the government has set up to petition the FDA.
Exactly.
And I feel like this is a pretty effective pathway. I mean, has this ever been tried before? Have we used this pathway before, or have other companies successfully done it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an avenue the vape industry has used before, other industries have used before, and it has been utilized to some positive effect in the past.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It was utilized for a PMTA delay, right? I remember that's the most recent one, I think.
I'm sorry?
Oh, really?
The PMTA delay, I think, is the other most recent one that comes to mind. The deadline delay, this was, I think, prior or right around times of COVID. I think I would have to go deep into the records, but I remember there was one. Did we lose her?
No. That's just me.
Okay, there we go. Related to delaying the PMTA deadline, I think because of like COVID holdups and stuff, that eventually... Correct me if I'm wrong here. I think this is the right one. There was a PMTA delay one, I know, and ultimately it was delayed. Whether or not you can say it was because of the petition or not, I can't speak to that. But we have done that. The industry has done them before. I think Enjoy did one. I can't remember exactly for what.
Yep.
I just hate the idea. I mean, I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but it's hard not to be a little bit pessimistic. But when you hear the FDA talk about, we don't have enough funding and we're understaffed, we don't have all these people to do these PMTAs, and then we're going, oh, over here too, guys, over here. Yeah, we're doing this as well, and the PMTAs and here's all the lawsuits, and then here's a Juul. I don't know what.
I have a lot of sympathy at this point. They overwhelmed us. They certainly kept us busy. So I don't.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got the citizens petition up and running. I think Danielle did a really nice job on kind of the backstory of who else has used that. It's certainly a tool our opposition has used effectively. It's a tool others in the industry have used to varying degrees of effectiveness. And so, it has thousands of comments on it at this point. So I think it should definitely get a lot of attention inside the agency because there's been a lot of interest in it. There's no specific deadline to submit comments on that, but since it does pertain to synthetic enforcement discretion, in our mind, it makes sense for everybody to get their comments in before that deadline closes, which is tomorrow for the synthetic. Right. So if you haven't made a comment yet, tonight or tomorrow, try to leave a comment in because we're all on tenterhooks waiting to see what the FDA is going to do in regards to these synthetic applications.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. There's the deadline. It's tonight. Do it now. Do it now.
Just do it now.
You can just do it literally right now. I'm just going to keep spamming the chat with the call to action for the citizens petition for synthetic nicotine. And this is one of those things, like, even if you don't use synthetic nicotine, and even if it doesn't affect you directly, still do the call to action.
Yes.
You know, it affects vaping as a whole. It affects the technology as a whole. Push back on everything. That's what I'm trying to tell everybody. Push back on everything. Even if there's a nicotine cap that you're like, I don't vape 50 milligrams, so that's okay if they cap it at 20. Doesn't matter if it doesn't affect you. Push back. Always push back. Always do the call to actions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's really important because a lot of people, aren't used to using synthetic nicotine, or maybe they don't realize that's what a lot of companies have switched to since the tobacco-derived nicotine applications got treated the way that they did. But a lot of the industry is functioning and able to service consumers right now based on synthetic nicotine. So it is really important for maintaining a variety of products to keep retailers open, to keep consumers in the pipeline with products. And we don't know exactly how many companies filed synthetic nicotine applications yet because the FDA hasn't released any sort of data on that. I know at least 100 companies applied from our space in the industry with AVM. I know that there are several hundred others, so we'll see how it turns out. I think on the original applications, there were just over 350 vapor companies that applied. So I think it should be fairly close to similar numbers this go round. So it is really, really important to a lot of different companies.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And Amanda brings up a really great point, is that, to what Nick said, even if you, like, I don't use synthetic nicotine, right? I use freebase.
Yeah.
But the reason to do this citizens petition is because retailers and websites that you want to continue carrying products for you to be able to access and for other people to be able to access, they need something that they can feel at least slightly, comfortable selling and not hoping that somebody's going to show up and shut them down, right? And so if FDA delays enforcement action on these products, stores, right, brick and mortar retail stores, potentially even website stores, can at least have some products to continue feel comfortable selling. So you're supporting the industry overall, even if you don't use synthetic nicotine products, right? You're still supporting the industry. So please do the petition.
Absolutely. And I'm assuming that, aren't what the majority of vape shops that are still around, what they're selling is mostly synthetic nicotine products, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's certainly correct. In our retail stores, that's the majority of what we're selling at this point. I know that's the case for many people, because out of those original tobacco-derived nicotine applications, there were about 6 million or so filed. I think the FDA is saying there's something like in the range of 55,000 products that are still left under review. So that's a very small proportion of what was filed on. It represents a very small proportion of the market. I think there have only been about 12 companies that got stays from their litigation. Yeah. And so you've got that small number of companies that are left in review. You've got that small number of companies that received stays. But for the vast majority of everyone else, they had to move over to synthetic nicotine to stay legally on the market.
Yeah, See, now,
more prominent. I think people realize, flip over and read your ingredients listings on your products, because there's good odds it may have changed.
Yeah, it might be. You might be vaping synthetic nicotine and not even realize it. Just because that's kind of all there is left. And even so how many vape shops do you run, Amanda Wheeler?
We have 6.
6 vape shops. That's really impressive to me, only because it seemed like there was a period, maybe it was just my perception on social media and Twitter and Facebook and things like this, where the American vape shop was just being decimated. And until recently, I've kind of been feeling like there might not even be any vape shops left. I feel like they're just, at this point, all gone. But then that's not entirely true. You have 6. I keep hearing about more and more vape shops, and one of my patrons was just, I got my job at the vape shop. And I'm like, okay, so vape shops are actually still a thing in some states. What's it like running a vape shop in this climate?
Well, it's pretty nice right now, to be honest. The part of our the part of our business that is actually running our business, our employees, our customers, product, ordering, sales, all of that. That's the fun part of our business that we like. That's the part that's actually going really well. I think there were a lot of things at play. There was definitely a time in 2019 where vape shops were seriously declining. I think if you look at VTA's economic analysis they did in like 20, there were 14,000 vape shops in the US. And then the last analysis they did only showed a little under 10,000. So that's a significant percentage that went away.
Yeah.
And that was due a lot in part to state-based actions where just if you happen to be in the wrong state and they did a flavor ban, your vape shop was in trouble. But really a lot of what happened was in 2019 with all of the volley misinformation. Customers got scared and they stopped coming into the stores, and a lot of people went through historically low revenues at that time. It was very hard to keep employees on the payroll, very hard to have enough money to order products, all of that sort of thing. And so I think for those of us that went through all of the hard times of 2019, what's going on right now is very welcome, because I think all of the customers are coming back into the stores. The employee shortage issue that we were having for a while is no longer happening. And so it's actually a really nice time to run a vape shop if you exclude everything that's going on in the government.
If you exclude all regulations and pending regulations, then damn, it's a pretty good time.
Yeah, but if you factor that in, it's pretty horrible, because it's like, am I going to have any product to sell next month?
Right.
It's if we could just run our businesses and help our customers, it would be great. But unfortunately, there's a lot more going on than just that.
Do you still get a pretty good influx of never vapors, current smokers coming in and trying, or?
Yeah, I think, we run numbers on this last week. So among our 6 stores, I think last week we had over 200 new customers that had never shopped with us before. So, there's still a steady stream of new people coming in, checking things out, seeing what it's about. I don't know how many of those people came from other businesses or other suppliers, but those, we still get quite a few new customers all the time.
Yeah. I didn't realize 10,000 is still quite a few vape shops across the United States. You never know, because the way that it's painted everywhere else is that it's just a dead and dying thing. That vape shops aren't a thing anymore.
Well, around where I live, there's at least 3 that I can think of, like, storefronts that are like, Redwood City Vape. And then if you go look, it's empty. It's been empty. It's like vacant. Sure. Nobody's there. There's a bunch of I think there might be one shop. I'm not even sure if it's still there. Like in California, it has not been.
Maybe it's me being in California. Maybe that's what it is. I think
part of it is us here, because here it's very...
Vape shops just don't exist in California. And the ones that still are selling vape stuff have all transitioned to... selling
CBD,
whatever else, CBD and glass, smoking glass and exotic sodas and candy and whatever else, odds and ends, like bodega style, not dedicated vape shops anymore.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard even in our stores. A couple years ago when things started to get tough, we started bringing in other types of products and things. But even today, that's only about 15% of what we sell. The vast, 85% of it is still purely vape, because that's our bread and butter. That's our mission. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and I've always really liked vape shops and thought they were really, really critical to the whole operation, the whole process. They talk about when you're quitting smoking or through smoking cessation, it always does better. You have better outcomes if there's support groups, right? Vape shops, online communities, those are the support groups. When you gut vape shops, you're gutting part of what makes vaping so successful to begin with. And it's one of the reasons, like in 2017, I did that the vape tour thing. And we just went to vape shops just because I wanted to bring attention to vape shops and be like, hey, a vape shop in Utah, you guys have a vape shop. It's right here. It's Crazy Vapor. They're great. And so I, want to try to support and bring attention to the vape shops.
Yeah, well, we in the vape shop world appreciate that, because that what we do is really important. We, go to links to, safeguard, minors accessing the products. We go to links to our employees are very well trained in the products and how to talk with new smokers that are coming in wanting to try vaping for the first time. And so there's a lot of specialty knowledge and expertise that goes into it. And the fact is, if you look at the other big place these are sold on the convenience store shelves, there are too many of us that, we're not Juul vapors, we're not Vuse vapors. That's not what helps us. And, unfortunately, open systems doesn't fit on the convenience store shelf. So it's just really important to keep specialty retailers around.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, there's just so many different ways to vape. People need access to all of it. All of it. 100%. 100%. Damn, FDA. What are you doing? They're denying Juuls. Okay, so let me ask you this. Did the Juul decision surprise you? When they made that announcement of MDOing all of Juul's products, did that surprise you? I was surprised. Like, legitimately couldn't believe what I was reading. I thought for sure a tobacco flavor would 100% get approved. They had already approved the Vuse Solo, and the Enjoy Ace,
and the Dailies,
and the Logic. And I thought the tobacco Juul, of course, is going to get an authorization, and it didn't. What surprised me?
I mean, is it valid to say I was shocked but not surprised? Is that
yeah?
That was me too.
That's a very political way to say yes.
I call it valid because that was my surprise, but also not surprised.
Yeah, I mean it's such a big flashy story that it has a certain amount of shock value, right? Somebody rips the Band-Aid. But, I mean, we started telling people, we at AVM, last year, even before all the mass denials came out, about 2 months before they started issuing mass denials to everyone, the way that FDA was relating to manufacturers on the back end completely changed. And it went from the situation where they were working with us, being reasonable, doing on-site inspections, doing remote assessments, asking for documentation, giving people time to address deficiencies. It went from that to all of a sudden, your application is now immediately in review. We'll let you know when something happens. And that was it. And then the next thing was a wave of denials. But when that happened, it was right after Acting Commissioner Woodcock got dragged up onto the Hill and just destroyed over this topic. And you could see there was a sea change, just a tidal shift in the way that FDA was dealing with this on the back end. So by the time all those denials came out, we saw the first one and we started telling people, this is a de facto flavor ban through regulatory decision making. They're going to do this to everyone. And everybody was like, no, you're crazy. They're not going to do that to everyone. And then they did it to everyone, right? And if you notice, they approved Vuse, the Solo. They didn't approve the Alto, which is their really popular product.
Yep.
Right.
This is the first time FDA made a decision on a truly massively popular product that showed up on all of the NYTS surveys, right? And so, is it that surprising? No, because they've been under political pressure for a long time. This was the first time they've done something on a product that's hugely popular. And so it is shocking because it's a huge news story, but it's par for the course at this point.
I think what shocked me the most is that they had the audacity, in my opinion, to cite some sort of lack of science as the reason for denying it. Because that, I am sorry. That is just impossible. Juul, if love or hate Juul, they are literally the most studied vapor device on the planet
ever.
They have so much resources, so much science, so much just all the things. You cannot, if they had come out and been because of the marketing to the kids, I would have been oh yeah, all right. You know what I mean? But to go for the science, that's the one area where I was I'm not buying this for a second, because that's where I think Juul would, of course, have it locked down.
Of course they crushed it.
Locked down.
Of course they crushed the science. And FDA used odd language too when they're talking about, well, this is the reason why it's denied because of this toxicological, discrepancy, whatever, in their application. But also there's no inherent harm in using these products, even though they couldn't provide evidence that they were safe. It's like, it felt like they were just talking in a circle. They're like, oh, it's dangerous because we say it's dangerous, so it can't be on the market. But if you're using it now, there's no inherent danger to you right now. It's just that Juul couldn't prove that they were safe because we're saying they're not safe because the toxicological report. But if you're using one, then it's okay.
Right. It doesn't make any sense.
They're like trying to please everybody, the prohibitionists, and tell vapors that to keep using the Juul because we're doing this for a weird reason. It all felt really bizarre. All the language they were using.
Yeah.
Well, and that's FDA is catching themselves in this just web of dishonesty right now, because it's like Al said, if they would have been honest on the face of it and said, there's been too much controversy with the youth figures, I wouldn't agree with that. I would understand the rationale. To ding them on toxicology, which they said they provided, 60,000 pages of toxicology to try to manufacture some kind of reason. It's just like they manufactured a reason to deny all of us, by creating the surprise switcheroo fatal flaw memo, longitudinal cohort study that they had never asked for before, right? They just invented something. Right? Because they don't want to come out and say, well, we're just going to deny flavors because we think kids use them, right? It's like with the Juul. They're not going to say, well, we're denying Juul because, a whole bunch of kids use this and our political, people in Congress are up our tails about it, right? The toxicology, like Juul didn't do their tox work. Come on. They spent $100 million. Toxicology is one of the most basic parts of a PMTA. Like, that's not even the advanced stages of PMTA. That is just the most ridiculous thing.
Yeah.
$100 million and they forgot to do toxicology data? No, absolutely not. Absolutely. And then what I loved, and I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here, what I loved was, so FDA denied, right? And then Juul immediately did, and Amanda probably knows this better than me, the technical stuff. They immediately appealed, essentially, which goes to court. And so then they got granted this sort of emergency stay. And then there was more paperwork. And the more recent filing that Juul did actually went so far in there. If you read the unredacted parts, it actually says no, FDA, we included 6,000 pages in our PMTA just of toxicological, whatever that word is, toxicological data.
Oh.
It's in there. You just didn't read it, right? Not even to say okay, we can submit more. No, they were literally it's in there on page 500. What are you doing? We included it.
It is actually right there.
Right. If they'd been oh, our bad, we can submit more for you. No. It was there the whole time. And then right after that, FDA is oh, never mind. We'll put you back and we're going to reevaluate the science. What is happening right now?
Well, it's very similar to what happened to Turning Point Brands in 2020, right? Turning Point in the original, slaughtering of all of our companies, right? Turning Point was caught up in all the surprise switcheroo stuff, and they went back and they said, hey, we did provide data that showed tobacco vapes compared to flavored vapes in regards to youth use. And FDA said, oops, mea culpa, we'll pull back your MDO, and then Turning Point rescinded their lawsuit. So, it's different, but very similar. And that's what gets me about the media with this whole thing, right? The media is looking at what's going on with Juul, and they're like, well, can you believe the FDA? And I'm like, where have you been for the last 18 months? This is not new.
Yeah.
Right? You just have Juul that's going to get headline attention, so now you care, but everyone acts so shocked about this. I'm like, there are so many companies that have already had this experience with FDA. It would have been nice if the media and the public would have cared a little more about it before we got to this point. But I'm at least glad people are starting to care now, if it took a big shocking Juul story to get them there.
No, to that point, the day that it happened and Juul was like trending on Twitter, which was like a big deal, right? Everybody was talking about it. I cannot even count how many times there were like random people on Twitter being like, well, it was only one company. All the others are fine. And I was like, hold my beer. Hold my beer. Let me type. What are you talking? Like,
way false.
Yeah.
That's
no, I
the
was
thing.
like,
Why did they single out Juul? Or why are you panicking? There's other vapes. And I'm like, oh, they're doing this to everybody, guys. Come on.
I was like, where have you been? Have you? No? Okay, nobody pays attention to FDA news unless it's Juul, apparently.
But I mean, like, FDA had to know before they even made this announcement, before even the leak. Wasn't this leaked before it was
leaked
announced?
The day before.
It was leaked the day before.
Leaked.
They had to know that Juul was going to appeal it and probably file a lawsuit back and then stay on the market. Like, was this just theater that they announced this? Because they know what's going to happen.
I mean, I want Amanda to go, but I have a theory. I have my own personal unsubstantiated theory, but
I like unsubstantiated theories.
I don't know why I have this nagging suspicion our theories are the same. So
they're probably. So my theory is that this whole, missing scientific data, not a real thing. They know what's in this. They've had 2 years to look over Juul's PMTA. I'm sure it's big, but they've had like a team working on it. This was an excuse to be able to deny the products and make big headlines about, oh, FDA, we said
look at us.
Right? Look at us. Because of the political pressure, right? Because of Raja, because of Durbin, because of everybody, because of Congress, because of PAVE, all the things, right? FDA did not feel like they could just come out and go, you're approved, ta-da, because they would get crucified by these organizations and legislators. So I think what they thought was, okay, we're going to deny it, and we're going to give a real weak sauce reason that's not even a real reason because clearly the data's in this giant report, but we're just going to say we missed it, right? We know that Juul is immediately going to take us to court. They're definitely going to win because that data is definitely in here. And then FDA can be like, well, sorry. I mean, we tried to deny it, but the court said we had to. They're trying to wash their hands of this so that it can get authorized. This is, again, unsubstantiated
without
theory.
Them actually authorizing it.
Right. They want to be forced into it by the courts so that PAVE and everybody isn't mad at them. It's like, well, what could we do?
But it's not going to stop. I mean, even if they go, I'm sorry to cut you off, Amanda. I know I want to hear Amanda's take of this as well. But even if
Danielle's, honestly.
Similar? Do you have a similar theory?
Oh, identical. That's exactly what I think is going on.
Even if they get through this little slippery thing and they get forced into approving or authorizing rather Juul on the market, the political pressure isn't going to stop. I mean, it's not just suddenly going to be like, well, I guess leave FDA alone now and stop pressuring them to do our bidding instead of following their own scientific regulatory process. We'll just leave FDA alone now.
I mean, I don't know what the groups, what Matt Myers and like Funky Bunch are going to do, but because they will have ongoing, right? So when you get an authorized PMTA, that's not like the end of it. You're not like approved for forever. There's post-market surveillance. I think with MRTPs, at least, it's like every 3 years. I don't know what exactly PMTA, but this can get like revoked after a period of time. So it's not like everybody's good for forever, even if you get authorized. I don't know if they'll put pressure on them. If it gets authorized, they'll try to pressure and, that to be revoked at some point. I don't know what their plan is. But I think FDA just did not want to be on the hook as just authorizing it with no issue. They wanted to pretend to put up a fight.
Pretend to put up a fight for the sake of political pressure.
Yes.
And then force them, purposefully have the courts force them to authorize Juul.
That's my theory.
That's interesting. That seems like just a lot of unnecessary political theater. And why doesn't FDA just stand up for themselves for once? I mean, just do the right thing and stand up for yourselves. Tell Raja Krishnamurthy, hey, shut up. You're not a scientist. We are. We did the science. These are for public health. You don't You have no power here.
Except they do over their budget, though.
They do over their budget, but that's messed up to hold a regulatory agency basically hostage with funding unless they regulate the way that you want them to regulate.
Welcome to the United States government.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Woo! USA. USA.
To be fair, FDA does get a ton of their funding from user fees, so a lot of it is independent from Congress. I want to say like 25% of their budget, though, is controlled by Congress. If I'm not, Amanda, correct me if you know better, but I think a lot of it is user fees from, pharmaceutical, drug, tobacco, any of it. But they do still rely on Congress for a portion of their budget.
Yeah, I'm no expert on how all of that works, but I know CTP is funded by user fees from cigarette sales, and they base it off of the tax stamps that are, tracked by the federal government and all of that. And it's a whole other deal that, vape has never been a part of FDA user fees, so it's not my area of expertise per se. Congress is the one that it discusses how the user fees are allocated and what the rates are and all of that sort of thing. And Congress also, deals with appointments. They have to confirm the FDA commissioner, all of that. So, that's another reason they're concerned about it. So there are many reasons. But, so it's interesting. I'll share an anecdote with you guys. So I was talking with someone that has way more years of experience dealing with FDA than most of us in vape land, from like pharma and tobacco and all of this, stuff. And, they basically shared with me that, talking with people inside the agency over the years, at any given point, FDA is being sued by so many people, right? Yeah. And when making a decision on anything even remotely controversial, they know that they're going to get sued by somebody. And so sometimes they're kind of sitting back and deciding, who do we want to face in court, right? And so sometimes that goes into some of the decisions because they're thinking ahead to, well, if we're going to get sued by one side, which side would we rather take on in a court battle? And so, that's a little bit cynical, but I did hear that from somebody who was very much in the know. So who knows? I don't put it past them.
I'm curious why they wanted Juul as opposed to, if let's go down that path and assume like that's how they're, calculating this. Why do you want to face Juul / Altria in court as opposed to, the people that make Logic or the Views or, any, I'm so interested because the Views product, like the other, 2 or so, like salt-based vape devices, even Enjoy, it's all basically kind of the same thing, right? Like all of these devices are essentially very similar.
Not super different from this.
Right. Like there, I'm sure there's minute differences.
Sure.
But like generally, right, these things are similar. So what's especially bizarre is like, Views and Enjoy had appropriate scientific, toxicology data.
Yeah.
But Juul didn't. And these like products are essentially like same kind of ingredients, same kind of,
same basic
hardware.
Technology.
Like why do you pick them? Like, I would think they wouldn't want to go to court with Juul or really any of the tobacco companies because they're good at going to court. If we look at history, I would think that they would go after the independent, like they'd be much more comfortable going after the independents. But that may show you just how powerful this political pressure is, right? Like they can't overcome that level. Like Amanda said, they've been dragged in front of Congress and screamed at by, congressional people about, will you sit here and promise me that you will never approve a Juul PMTA? Like, no.
Yeah.
What is this? Like an oath that what is happening? Is this a club that you have to pledge to?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you pinky promise? Yeah.
Like a blood.
Exactly. Do you guys have a clubhouse? Like, am I joining a cult? What is happening right now?
Yeah.
Other thing that I heard about FDA recently that was really interesting was that they had to hire a crisis communications PR firm because of all of the fallout from all of this, which I find just phenomenally gratifying.
Yeah, isn't it I can't remember the name, somebody who's like a pundit on one of the networks or something?
I don't know who it is. I'm not sure on that.
Yeah, they did. I saw that. Yeah, they hired.
Well, 'cause if you look at it outside of vape, right? FDA is in a whole bunch of hot water on a number of issues. And I am a single issue political person, right? I care about vape. I am, an advocate around vape. So don't anybody skewer me if you have very strong feelings on any of these topics, right? But look at everything the FDA is in hot water for. The opioid crisis, right? That's been going on forever.
Yep.
Everything surrounding COVID, the vaccines, all of it, right? Baby formula, like all of a sudden the entire country ran out of baby formula. And now you've got, the Juul crisis, right? And
Right.
so, it's just one thing after another. I think FDA's got probably lower public confidence than they've ever had.
No, it's true. And even before all of that, just to point out, there was a big controversy. I think it got swept under the rug about an Alzheimer's drug that was approved, even before like any of the stuff that we just mentioned. So they've been in hot water for a minute about a lot of different, like everything from like Alzheimer's to COVID to baby formula to vape. Like they're not winning friends and influencing people these days.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy to think about all the other lawsuits because like you were saying, Amanda, I just come at this from, the vape standpoint. So I try to keep up on like the Triton lawsuit and the Juul lawsuit, but FDA at any given time is involved in so many different controversies and so many different lawsuits. How do we even still trust the FDA to tell us when lettuce has E. coli and we should avoid lettuce? It's like the trust just erodes away into nothingness.
I don't know. I've never had a lot of faith in the pharma side of FDA.
No.
I just hope and pray that maybe the food division knows what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like this isn't, is this going to end well for the FDA, for FDA? I'd like to think not, but
I don't know. This is the problem like across the board, right? You could talk about this with any agency. In my personal opinion, with the United States government, like a lot of this stuff is broken, right? We're seeing it a lot with FDA because we're really involved in this.
Yeah.
But these kinds of problems are not unique just to FDA. It's across, like CDC's had their own, spat of conflict of interest issues that I've, hammered about. Other organizations have swayed to political pressure or different things. Like this is a nationwide problem, I think, with our government because of the way so many things are interlocked. And you could talk for days about what all the issues are, but right. I don't know how because I do believe, and this may or may not be an unpopular opinion with our viewers and stuff, I do believe that we need an agency like the FDA to make sure that consumer products and, prescription products are safe for people. I do think that we need something that
things need to be regulated.
Right. So I think they are a safety net that ought to exist. The way that they are run, how it works, how basically it's the, head of FDA is a revolving door with pharmaceutical companies, all of these conflicts and funding issues and secret meetings and incentives and, the fact that alone FDA, like we talked about, the majority of their budget comes from the companies that they regulate.
Yeah.
That's not a great situation. Like if I wanted to set up a Netflix movie about bribery and blackmail, that's what I'd set up, right? An organization that gets paid by the people they're supposed to be regulating, right?
Yeah.
That is a perfect recipe for problems, in my opinion. But I don't know how you fix this. I don't know. Because like I said, I don't think we should, dissolve it personally, because I do think that consumers ought to be protected from, companies that are greedy and will cut corners.
Clearly do cut corners.
Right. Like there have been dangerous things in products before.
Too many dangerous things in too many products. Like I agree with you. And this is coming from a California libertarian who's all about the free market.
Right. But we don't want snake oil. We don't want people telling you if you buy this vitamin, it'll cure your cancer. Like that's dangerous.
That's
for people,
super dangerous.
Right? We don't want that.
Yeah, 100%. That, and there's actually dangerous things that, if a company, and I hate to be so cynical as to think that most companies would do this, but if a company has the chance to make more money by, like Danielle, to your point, cutting corners or what grade high fructose corn syrup are we using? Can we drop down to like, barely ingestible for humans grade to make some more money? And, they'll do it. And there needs to be accountability. I agree. But the current FDA, what? How do you trust them?
Yeah, no.
How?
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. I mean, it's really simple, right? It's very simple, but very complicated on, if I was in charge of the Center for Tobacco Products, right? How would I do? Because, someone should hire me for that job. I could do way better than Brian King. He is not
100%.
He has no qualifications.
Yeah, if pharma guys get to head up FDA, I feel like vape people should get to head up Center for Tobacco Products.
CTP,
Just
yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
Just saying.
100%.
I pick Amanda. I do.
Right. Well, so all of these things that they want to know, right? These big global questions about, tobacco vapes versus flavored vapes when youth versus adult use. That is a master study that could be done by the FDA. They spend their user fees financing Stanton Glance's ridiculous studies. Why not do one that's actually useful on vape? That answers that question. You don't have all of these, 10,000 mom and pop companies that are expected to go produce a $2 million clinical trial. They could go find out the answer to that question very easily, right? They set out all of this stuff in the PMTA that we have to test for, and the aerosols and the toxicology, all of that. They never defined what the acceptable limits are, right? They should create some very basic standards. Here are the known potentially harmful constituents in a vape. Here's the cutoff. Go test your product for that. Show us if it falls into the acceptable range, right? Yep. It's, 6 million applications on the same 600 ingredients. It's ridiculous. Why not
Right.
a list of ingredients in vape devices that they have researched that they know are acceptable to put in, like they have for food and other things?
Dietary supplements is a perfect example of that.
So much more complicated than it needs to be. It should be, okay, we're going to check and make sure your manufacturing is safe and clean and consistent, and that you have recall procedures. We're going to make sure you're not exceeding any predefined limits and things that might concern us. We're going to look at your marketing and make sure you're not out there doing something egregious, right? You're not spoofing Pop-Tarts or whatever. It doesn't need to be all of the layers of BS that it is. Like, the more complicated, expensive parts of PMTA that make it so out of reach for everybody, those are studies that broadly apply to the entire industry that FDA could spend some money into, like they did with VLN cigarettes, like they did with cigars, like they've done with a lot of other things. But they don't do that with ours. They put it on us. Each of you companies, you 10,000 companies, go out and do the same study that you can't afford over and over and over again, instead of, we could just do this once with all of our hundreds of millions of dollars in user fees, but that would make it too easy on you guys. So we're going to create this impossible situation. It's ridiculous.
100%, all the things, yes.
Oh, that good old free market. Free market in the United States. We have a free market. I'll laugh in your face.
And the crazy thing is, like Amanda said, FDA regulates other products like this. Like, I do graphic design work for people in the dietary supplement arena, right? That's how it works. That's how FDA regulates dietary supplements. There is a actually grandfathered list of ingredients where if you are making a dietary supplement and your ingredients are on this list, you're fine. You go forth and make your product, right? As long as it's one of these ingredients, you're good to go. You have some labeling guidelines that you have to follow, right? You got to put your ingredients, you got to put your dosage, you got to put any warnings. You can't market it like this is going to cure cancer. Like, you can't make unfounded medical claims. And then other than that, have fun, entrepreneur. Like, go ahead and do whatever it is, sell your lion's mane or, whatever it is.
Yep.
And they could do something similar. In fact, if somebody wanted to pick my brain about how I think this should be done, I think an entire separate regulatory body should be created for these sort of gray market-y consumer products that are consumer solutions, non-pharma stuff. So CBD, cannabis, kratom, vape, like all of these things would go into, because they're not pharmaceutical, but they are consumer products but they're also for things, you know what I mean? Like a separate agency just for those, that understands you're working with small businesses, that understands that a lot of them use the same stuff. So like studies can be pooled, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Bananas.
I agree.
I mean, that would be far less bureaucracy, Danielle. We can't have that. You need the 10,000 page long PMTA process. You need 60,000 pages of toxicological reports for what is, objectively one of the most simple little pieces of technology ever to exist. It's not enough for FDA. It's not enough for FDA. Now, so Amanda Wheeler.
Yes.
I heard that you
my first and last name together.
Oh yeah, Amanda Wheeler. I don't know. There's some people. I do that to you too, Danielle.
I was just gonna say he does it to me too. It's Danielle Jones.
Danielle Jones. I don't know what it is. Some
Very
people
official.
get the first and last name. Amanda Wheeler. Amanda Wheeler, how do we hold FDA accountable for regulating so arbitrarily and capriciously? How do we get to hold them accountable? Is that a reality?
It is a reality. I think you see all of this litigation that companies are launching into. That's one way for, each company on their own to hold FDA accountable over their specific application. And, companies are having some success with that. But, AVM, we just put together a request to the Office of the Inspector General at Health and Human Services, which oversees the FDA, to conduct into the Center for Tobacco Products PMTA review process. I just said so many acronyms and things, but all of our audience here, they're all very informed on these things, so it's fine. But we sent a request to the Office of the Inspector General at HHS overseeing them, outlining what we feel is a non-scientifically driven decision-making process. What, for all the reasons we've discussed and everyone on Twitter's discussed at length, is a politically motivated process, right? And
Sure.
So that is another way that we have to hold them accountable. We sent, thank you.
Is this okay to share? Is this okay to share?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
okay.
We sent this in last week, and we'll put it up on our social media and website so people can go take the time to read it. But you see, we to the Inspector General,
Their
saying
name is
that,
Grimm?
Yeah, there's another.
This is a good sign. This is a good sign. Believe it or not.
You're the best, Grimm. Though
This is the best.
It's true.
Not so
you
great.
are objectively the best. Grimm.
Well, Christy A. Grimm could become our new favorite Grimm.
Yeah, we'll see. I think you'd be hard to knock out of the top spot.
Well, we'll see. He could.
Yeah, but so I mean, we see there. You can go through it if you want, but
Yeah.
we just outline our reasoning. We link to everything that we're saying to substantiate it. We were trying to
Yep.
set out a brief fact pattern, so to really outline what the gist of our complaint is and the direction we'd like them to look in.
Yeah.
Several specific items we suggest to them that they may want to specifically look at.
Yeah. See, even right here where you say, although Juul is the largest such company to receive a marketing denial order, members of AVM have been denied marketing approval for several million products for what seems to be similar, arbitrarily, and politically infused decision-making.
Yeah.
It's almost like if Juul... I don't know. Juul. I don't know if I've ever considered Juul like an enemy or a friend or an ally or something like that. But it seems like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. If it's kind of like, hey, that happened to us too. Well, everything that Juul is saying already happened to thousands of us as well, like us too.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. We wanted to tag on to that because of course everybody knows the name of Juul, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody knows the names of my tiny company or Char's tiny company or our other members companies. And so we wanted to make the point, like, this egregious thing just happened to Juul, but it has been egregiously going on for a year and a half.
Yeah. Egregious.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is egregious.
It is.
It is.
And you even call out Durbin?
Oh, we call them all out. We're the PAVE thing where Raja was bragging about it, Durbin,
Yeah.
the Woodcock. I mean, there's a whole history there that I think really deserves to be told. I mean, if you look at the Juul case, they spell it out. There are several advocacy organizations that put in an amicus brief, including us. It's spelled out further in the amicus brief. CASA was on there as well. I think it was like all of the sort of OG vaping organizations were on there. And in that amicus brief, it just provides further evidence of that. And so, we wanted to take it outside of the realm of the court system in the Juul case specifically that's about Juul and say to the Inspector General, this is going on everywhere and it needs to be investigated. You already see FDA admitting that they've made mistakes. You've already see the court saying that FDA's made mistakes. So we've got to look at this across the board, not just for Juul.
Agreed.
I love it.
And it was interesting because we actually got a response to this afternoon from...
Did you?
Yes, from Miss Grimm's representative. And interestingly, they said that there has been an investigation that the OIG has been conducting into the FDA PMTA review process since November of last year, and they will certainly incorporate our concerns into their inquiry. So that was I'm not on my... So I can't share that document, but we'll post it up as well. So we actually did get a fairly expeditious response, which I was shocked by.
Interesting.
So is that news to us that they're already investigating? Did we know that? I didn't.
I had no idea.
I didn't know that. If anybody in the chat knew about that, link us to something, because I just found out about it. I'm like, oh, well, now we've lodged our concerns, feed them into
right. Well, and it is kind of like, it's cool that I like that you guys did that, but it's also kind of cool to know that you're not the first, that, like maybe you are the first, but that they're already sort of investigating this. That's
somebody else thought something was sketchy.
Yeah, somebody else already thought something was sketchy.
Well,
that's kind of reassuring a little bit.
To it, because the way that it read to me, it almost sounded like it was some of the ANTS groups that were asking them to start an inquiry last year. And so now we've brought the other side of what needs to be looked at into the inquiry. I'm really speaking out of school because I just found out about this shortly before the show, but I need to do some more research on whatever they've been doing since November of last year.
Oh,
now that would be interesting if it was ANTS groups doing it, right? Like that would be because we know they're unhappy, right?
Yeah, they're unhappy, but what would be their goal? They would find out, FDA really did regulate based on political pressure?
Well, I'm not.
Mission accomplished?
Sure. I think the thing that is interesting now that we know that this is going on is it opens up the door to do FOIA requests on this inquiry, opens up the door to do FOIA requests on even the internal communications that they had when they received our request last week, all of that sort of thing. So now we can start to, it's great that they sent us a letter back and said, we are investigating, we're going to take your concerns into account. But now it calls for some follow-up, which we be all over, and any other, advocacy groups out there, if you want to take up the challenge with OIG, write a letter in like we did. I'll give you all the templates and stuff with who we emailed it to and all of that sort of thing. But, send in your own inquiry, FOIA on the investigation, follow up with them to ask them periodically how it's going. There are so many of us. I think there's a lot of stuff that we can do. We just have to be very, very persistent about it because, they're getting bombarded with litigation. I think that's making progress. We can bombard them with citizen petitions. We can work through the OIG. We can work through the ombudsman. There's a lot of things our advocacy groups can be doing.
Yeah.
And they are, not to imply people are not doing things. Everybody's doing a whole lot, and it's awesome to see.
Yeah.
I think it's making this a lot harder than I think FDA thought it was going to be to just roll over us.
Yeah. Well, it feels to me like they're trying to fit a square hole or a square peg into a round hole, because they're trying to it seems to me, again, I'm just speculating. This is based on nothing. It's just a GrimmGreen hypothesis. These usually don't pan out very well. But it seems like they're just trying to fit vaping into the role that tobacco used to have. It's like, no, these few companies are going to control it. We're going to regulate it. It's going to be the bad guy. We're going to have anti-campaigners for it. Like, they're just trying to fit vaping into this tobacco space, but it's not possible. It's not a possible thing.
Nope.
I mean, it's their whole strategy, right? Big vape, big tobacco.
That's what the vibe I get. Like, big vape.
Key, right. Hooking a whole new generation, even though there's no data to support that. I mean, that's part of their strategy. Yeah. And it doesn't work in their narrative to say, and this is why I push this so hard, especially, as a part of CASA. I go around on the internet and make it my personal goal in life to correct every human that I find that says like, oh, big tobacco invented vaping. Like, no, absolutely not. Stop right there. Consumers, people invented vaping, came up with it, innovated it, made it creative, pushed it, all the things. Big tobacco came in later, after we've done all the hard work of making an industry. And then they were like, oh, we can jump on this cash cow as well. That's what happened. Yeah. And to say anything to the contrary to that is factually incorrect and a rewriting of history. Yeah. And that it is key to, in my opinion, dismembering their strategy, because that's not true. And when you realize that people who are directly affected by, like, imagine if cancer patients rose up and made their own cancer cure because they got tired of, waiting
chemotherapy
on whoever.
And
right.
Sure.
Like, tell me how you're realistically going to poke holes in that from a PR standpoint. Like, oh, what are you going to discredit cancer patients for wanting to save themselves?
Big hospital? Yeah.
Right. And so part of, I really feel like that is a narrative that absolutely has to come to the forefront of this, because it's really hard to discredit people making a solution for themselves. That's the American dream, right? Yeah. Pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, making a solution to a problem, and then also finding a way to make money off of it. That is literally
and spread
America.
It, prolifically across through the free market before the government gets involved and picks winners and losers.
Right.
Yeah, that is the American dream, damn it.
It is the most patriotic thing we could do.
That is super American dream. Yeah, 100%. And I think it was big tobacco that kind of was just like...
Just about that, Danielle, because I think that's such a good story. I'm like in an essay contest specifically on that topic.
Take it, write it, do it. Like,
do it. We're working on that right now. But it's true. I mean, I always shamelessly tell my story about being a cancer survivor because, like, it's my story, but I think to illustrate the point that, like, there are people who need these products. They're not just, teenagers fiending in the bathroom. These are real life people that have concerns and have, things that, health problems that they've dealt with in the past, health problems that, they know smoking is going to cause them in the future. And so people are actively looking for their own solution, and they found it if the government would just get out of the way.
Yeah, 100%. If the government would just get out of the way.
I really, in my head, like a month or so ago, I started composing an op-ed, which I don't know how to get an op-ed published. But if I did, I wanted to write one that was called "Move FDA, Get Out the Way."
Yeah, 100%.
Or tobacco control, right? Like,
and there's been a lot more critical. It seems like people critical of the FDA have just kind of been coming out of the woodwork. Everybody's writing op-eds and opinion pieces about, one of my favorite ones I saw, here's this one. Drift toward harm production. I was like, yep, harm production. I want the FDA to be known for harm production. Demonizing and, vilifying Juul and all of vaping, denying Juul, but approving combustibles, low nicotine combustibles. That's crazy. That's just harm production. Anyway,
it is.
I've just noticed a lot of, more scathing pieces and stuff being written about FDA.
I agree. I think that's partially because anybody who logically looks at this situation, who actually pays attention to the facts that are going on, are pretty quick to be like, wait a minute, what is happening right now? Like, even factoring in all of the youth things and all the things, you're allowing new cigarettes on the market.
Yeah.
Still cause cancer, still kill people, still the things.
Have plenty of addictive qualities, even if they're lower nicotine. Sure.
Right. And you're denying these things that even the anti-people begrudgingly admit are less harmful than smoking for the most part. Like if you twist their arm, eventually they'll mutter it out.
They whisper it.
Yeah, they'll whisper it.
They whisper it. World Health Organization will whisper, you know, well,
there's a big but
if every smoker switched to vaping, then that might
exclusively, no dual
exclusively, yeah. Then maybe that would be a public health benefit. But no flavors. Shh. Say that quietly, you know.
And then they have the nerve in front of lawmakers to say, well, we're not pushing for prohibition.
Oh, yeah, we have no interest in telling adults what to do.
Out there, just not in any flavors, not in an effective nicotine content, not in, the delivery device that people want. You know, but we're not.
Prefer.
Just tax the hell out of it, ban everything that makes people like it, and then we'll be okay with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well.
But there was some good news this week, some small good news.
It's only Tuesday.
That amendment that was being pushed into the National Defense Authorization Act got withdrawn. So that was a tiny raise.
I don't know anything about this.
This was real fast news. This was it came on our radar, and then, Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong, but it came on my radar through, because I saw people talking about it, and then it was a few days, and then it was oh, it's gone.
Is this something I can find on Twitter quickly?
Problem from Tuesday to Friday of last week. It was fleeting.
Right.
So probably not something I'm going to be able to quickly find on Twitter.
No,
What was it? Give me the gist of it. What was it? It was an amendment?
Yeah, well, so this Representative DeSaulnier out of California wanted to file an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act, which is the budget for military and national defense.
Sure.
He wanted to file an amendment into that, basically stating that, this is so complicated and wonky. Now, FDA has control over vape through the deeming regulation. Everybody knows about the deeming regulation.
Yeah.
So it was officially a congressional amendment to define vape as a tobacco product so that FDA's authority over it would never be questioned or challenged, right? So because it would be Congress laying it out, right?
Sure.
And it also said that FDA was no longer allowed to exercise enforcement discretion. If somebody didn't have a marketing granted order, they had to do recalls on the product. And so basically it would have wiped the market right now, except for View Solo and Enjoy Ace and Tobacco and whatever else has an MGO. It would have ended enforcement discretion. So it was a really bad deal. For 4 days I was flipping out about it.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I'm glad I didn't even know about that. I'm really glad I wasn't swept up in that stress, and I'm glad that it got pulled. Holy crap. Yeah. That would have been really bad.
Yeah. Well, it had not the first thing to do with military or national defense. So, everybody kind of thought it was going to get taken out. But because the guy who sponsored the amendment was on the committee that got to decide which amendments were going to be put on, it was a bit threatening. But luckily, it turned out to be nothing. Thank God.
Yeah. Thank the maker.
Yeah.
Why? And they're always trying to slip things in there. That's what happened with the vape mail ban too. Is that sat on the House or the Senate floor forever doing nothing, and then they're finally, we'll just put it in the omnibus budget bill that's going to pass, so now we can have a vape mail ban finally, after this bill did nothing for years.
Yeah. God
damn it, Congress. What the hell's your problem?
Isn't there some movement or some bill that somebody has put forward I can't remember. It's something about one something, where basically you can't do bundled legislation, right? Like when you have a bill, it has to be about one thing. You can't add all these extra riders and amendments. I support that. 100%. Whoever's that is and wherever that is in the process, I want that. Because
bills should be discussed and edited and fine-tuned
and fully read and
perfect
understood before they're signed into law.
Yeah.
Like the Minnesota, did you guys hear about the Minnesota bill that legislators passed, and they didn't realize?
Edibles?
Yeah, that they legalized edibles because they didn't read the bill.
So
they
good.
didn't know that it was in there. Like they don't read it.
Yeah.
They don't.
They don't read it. They don't understand it. They don't, I'm
Nope.
sure. I mean, do they think of the intended consequences, the unintended consequences, like risk, cost, benefit analysis? Nothing. It's these huge stacks that they just have to sign.
Well, they just know if the lobbyists that gave them money for their campaign told them to vote for it or not.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Ding,
Right.
ding, ding.
Where we don't have corruption in America, we call it lobbying.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. Well, let's see. We're all depressed now. Oh, we've
Yeah.
been going for a while. Let me ask you this, Amanda Wheeler. Let's talk about the future. I put a little poll in the chat that said the future of vaping in America, I can't swipe to it right now, is, people seem hopeful about it. But even thinking about the future, obviously FDA, whatever, yada, yada, lawsuits, but we're going to have another year of National Youth Tobacco Survey data. We're going to have, in 2023, World Health Organization is having COP10, where they said they were going to discuss e-cigarettes and tobacco harm reduction. Now it's on the agenda. Those are some future things coming up. What do you think about the future?
God, that's a tough question. Like globally, right, with all the WHO stuff and whatever, I mean, I don't know a ton about that. I do know that a lot of countries have been making some good progress lately. I was on a panel at GFN with Nancy Lucas, and she does a lot of Asia Pacific advocacy, and they've had some really good wins over there in Asia Pacific. There have been good things going on in a couple of European countries for harm reduction. So I think there are signs around the world that maybe give people hope. I know a lot of people have some optimism about some of the reports that just came out in the UK, all of that sort of thing. So, globally, I'm no expert on that, but the people that are experts on it seem to think there are places where they're able to turn around some of this stuff to build on that momentum, which I think is a great development. Here in the U.S., in the short term, I'm not hopeful about it. Like if you stretch the frame out to maybe 2 or 3, 4 years down the road, I might get a little more hopeful. Right now, like in the short term, I don't see anything good happening unless it occurs via litigation.
Yeah. Yes.
I agree.
Not a good report, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. I still believe, and I think Amanda does too, that eventually it is going to get better in the United States. I think that we all believe that, truth and science eventually
Has to win.
right, are going to, even if that takes the entire rest of the world to be on board with vaping, and then FDA in the United States is the very last country that's finally like, well, I guess so.
Yeah.
Even if it's that extreme, I do think eventually people are going to recognize that vaping is essentially one of the greatest public health advancements in the history of the world. I'm going to go ahead, at least since vaccines and things like.
Agree.
But in the short term, I think it's going to be probably painful for a while longer.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I agree with that. I've been saying it's going to get worse before it gets any better for a real long time. It just seems to keep getting worse. But I believe it's going to get better because vaping undeniably works really well. This is something Dimitri said a long time ago. Is like vaping works, and it's always going to work. And you almost have to give our government and the Food and Drug Administration and the CDC some credit for really controlling the narrative of vaping and managing to convince people that smoke that this life-saving alternative might not be the best option for them, might not be the best option. I think that's kind of unbelievable. Unbelievable.
It's criminal. You've got a product out there that could potentially help hundreds of thousands of people a year not die.
Yeah, not
and
die.
Our government is lined up to lie to them about that.
Yeah. And even in the way that they announce, like, the whatever View Solo authorized on the market for the protection of public health. smokers, if you're interested, they don't even say like, if you smoke, try nothing. They don't promote it. They don't say, this is for the protection of public health. If you want to switch to this product, yes, do it. They announce it with just like this little whisper. And so I think people who smoke, who have no, whatever, horse in the race, so to speak, is that compelling if you're a cigarette smoker? Is that compelling for you to try a vape? No, probably not. Okay, yeah, probably not. If
they should be like, hey, we just authorized this product, and we would like everyone to know that if you smoke, perhaps you should try this. We've just authorized it.
This is for the protection of public health. Give it a shot. Nothing.
Yeah. Nope.
Even when they approve it, they further like discredit it. They're like, we approved it, but
But that doesn't mean it's safe.
We approved it.
I'm sorry. We authorized it.
Toxicological.
We did not approve it. We authorized it, but that doesn't mean that it's safe. What kind of message does that send the American people? What does that even mean?
Yeah.
Like,
it's word salad. That's it. It's just talking in circles.
Companies aren't allowed to tell the truth about their products, right? Even if they get an MRTP, there are like a couple of anemic statements that they're allowed to say.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? But they're not really allowed to go out there and really spread the message of what their products have the potential to do. And it's sad because people should know about it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Now, I hear smokers all the time. They say, well, I know what cigarettes are going to do to me, but I don't know what the vapes are going to do to me, so I'm not going to go there.
Yeah, the devil you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really sad when people say stuff like that, because it's like, how do you argue with that? It's like, have 3 hours to look at studies with me.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, dude.
One of my go-tos lately has been, because it's true, right? So the average, if you look it up, the average life cycle for getting a pharmaceutical product into the hands of people in America is about 15 years. That's the average amount of time that it takes a product to get studied and go through clinical trials and get authorized and all the things, right? 15 years. That's how long vaping's been on the market. People have literally been, for better or worse, guinea pigs, right? Testing on themselves for 15 years around the world, these products. Same amount of time. So if that's not enough time, that's what I say to people who are like, well, we don't know. It hasn't been long enough. I'm like, but drugs on the market now were tested for less amount of time than vape has been. So tell me why it's okay there, but not here, That's my go.
Yeah, well, it's because I think they make that correlation in their head with cigarettes. Like, well, we didn't know for a long time. It's probably people who like smoked throughout the 50s and 60s. It's like, well, we didn't know for like 40 years.
We didn't have computers. We didn't have
the science is way better now.
We didn't have a lot of things back then. Like, do you really think it should take just as long now? Is that what you think? Is that what you think?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
We've come a long way since the 50s, guys.
Yeah, we have so much better science now, and people are so much smarter.
And it can be done faster.
We can do this way quicker, and it's way faster. Much more precise and effective, too.
Right.
We know. I think that's kind of it that I really had that I wanted to talk about. Unless you had anything else you wanted to throw out there, Amanda Wheeler?
The thing everybody's watching right now, obviously the congressional deadline for FDA it's really on industry. It's not so much a deadline on FDA, but it is coming up this week. And so everyone's watching to see what FDA is going to do, if they're just going to issue out a massive amount of denials like they did last time and get hauled to court again, or, if they're going to, hold people in limbo and perhaps practice some enforcement discretion, which would be very welcome. But that remains to be seen. There was a quote in Stat News the other day with an FDA spokesperson kind of teasing at the fact that they may exercise some enforcement discretion. So, and of course, all the prohibitionists their hair was on fire about it. So, it won't be boring, but that's what everybody's watching this week. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, look, we'll see what happens. It's at the very least in the United States of America, it's going to be a trip watching all this kind of play out. I mean, what with Juul lawsuits?
I can't
with
wait for the movie.
Yeah.
I want to know who's going to play Amanda, who's going to play Nick, who's going to play like Greg Connolly. Like, I can't wait for this Netflix movie.
Yeah.
It probably won't be for like 20 or 30 years, but there's going to be a movie about this.
Yeah. I mean, it's a historical thing that's kind of happening right now with tobacco harm reduction and the resistance from the Food and Drug Administration and the Centers for Disease Control. And, I don't know. It just trips me out, especially looking at it on like a global scale when you see other countries doing way different things. Right. And even other countries where you thought it would be much more strict is much less strict. We're all going to get on the same page eventually. I mean, you can't, what did I used to say? You can't run from the science forever. You can't.
I agree.
You straight up can't, FDA, even if you cave to political pressures. Well, I think that's it. I think that's going to do it for the stream this afternoon, you guys. Plenty of ragging on the FDA. So many lawsuits. It's great. Thank you, Amanda Wheeler, for being here. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Danielle. Always happy to come on.
Definitely follow not just Amanda Wheeler, but the American Vapor Manufacturer Association on Twitter. I'll post links down in the description. They post stuff all the time. If you want to follow up on the letter that was sent to the Department of Health and Human Services, I'm sure that will be on their Twitter as well. So follow them on Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter if you really want to. But definitely follow the American Vapor Manufacturers Association. Yeah, thank you, Addie Tooney. Thank you for putting that in the chat. And thank you so much, everybody, for being here. There were a few super chats that came in while we were chatting away. Courtney, that's very gracious of you. Courtney said, thanks for keeping us informed and for keeping up the good fight. It's kind of just what we do, I guess, at this point. I feel like this is my mission. This is the hill I'm going to die on. Did you see that tweet from Brad Radu not too long ago when he was on the news talking about tobacco harm reduction in 1994?
I don't think I saw that tweet.
Oh, it was so great. He's like, oh, yeah, there was resistance to tobacco harm reduction in 1994. It's like him, young Brad Roddy, bow tie talking about snus and on the news. And then here we are in 2022 with the same resistance to tobacco harm reduction. And that just made me all sorts of depressed. It's like I can't imagine how frustrated Dr. Brad feels in 2022 having that many years of resistance to harm reduction. Yeah. That's what we do, Courtney. I appreciate it. Joshua had in with the super chat. You didn't say anything. You didn't have to, but here's $5 worth of fist bump, I hope. Maybe a few more seconds. $5 worth of fist bump. And then Jake Scrapwood says, in the Midwest, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, South Dakota, most all vape stores turned into mid-90s head shops. Yeah. That's kind of what was happening at least around me in California and Los Angeles as well. Damn, I should have read that during the stream, Nick. What are you doing? It's okay. Well,
I support whatever vape shops need to do to hang
100%. I agree. Whatever vape shop has to do to keep selling vape stuff, you gotta keep selling vape stuff. You gotta keep serving people who smoke. You gotta, because the smoking rate's gotta keep going down.
Yep.
We can't have an uptick because of bad regulation. Which is where we're headed. Anyway, I think we're just going to say thank you so much for joining us, everybody. One more time, thank you, Amanda Wheeler. And thank you to your husband as well for donating his
office.
Slick oak office. It's real slick, real pro sauce. I like it. So thank him for us.
I'll have to apologize later. I very abruptly booted him out of here. He's a good man, though. He didn't ask too many questions. So it was...
I'm sure he'll understand. I'll thank him personally. Anyway, thank you guys so much for being here. Remember that no matter what anybody tells you, vaping is an order of magnitude safer for you than burning and inhaling deadly combustible tobacco cigarettes. So do some calls to actions. Do some testimonials. Keep fighting the good fight. We'll see you guys back here maybe in 2 weeks for some more